In our first panel, Nicolas Sahnawi, Hamad Rabah, Yasser Akawi, and Hala Fadil will be talking about Lebanon's ecosystem. Moderating this panel is Mike Butcher. Please welcome Mike.
I'm sure everybody had a great time last night, so we'll try and wake you up a little bit. I arrived myself from Helsinki in Finland at 3 o'clock in the morning this morning, so you'll forgive me if I'm doing my best to make things animated. I'm excited to be here because I've been coming to Beirut for the last few years at various events, and to me this is a sort of a real reawakening of the ecosystem, and that's what we're going to be talking about now. One of the things that that I've done as an observer of technology startup ecosystems in Europe and the Valley is that you've got to see pieces falling into place inside an ecosystem for startups to develop, for talent to come out, and for entrepreneurship to become a real driving force in economies and in society. And this is obviously a fantastic part of the development of any economy and any society. So we're going to look a little bit about the ecosystem and see. So we're going to try and do things in a sort of as positive manner as we can. We're going to shy away from the gaps, where there are gaps, and then we're going to. I think the point of this is to think about calls to action. How can Lebanon's technology startup ecosystem get better, and what can we do as a community to improve it and make it happen? So, without further ado, I think it'd be great, briefly, if we start at the end, if you would just like to introduce yourself, literally with your name in one sentence, and then we'll go along the panel and we'll start the panel. Go ahead.
Hamad Rabah, from ZRE, General Manager and Developer of Beirut Digital District.
Yasser Akawi, Publisher, Executive Magazine.
Nicolas Sahnawi, previous Minister of Telecommunication.
Sorry, I'm going to be longer because I wear multiple hats. Hala Fadil, partner at Leap Ventures, chair of the MIT Enterprise Forum, and board member at LFE, Lebanon for Entrepreneurs.
Fantastic. So, it's 2014. In 5 years' time, where do you want the technology ecosystem in Lebanon to be? I'm going to put that to you first.
Well, yesterday there were lots of entrepreneurs on stage, and I met one of them, Ramzi Rizq, who told me that 3 or 4 years ago the ecosystem was even behind what he's seeing today in Lebanon. I was in London, and I think 5 or 6 years ago the ecosystem was not much more developed than we have today. So I think 5 or 6 years from now, it's quite realistic to see successful tech stories out of Lebanon and have a vibrant ecosystem with lots of entrepreneurs and a good venture capital industry.
Would you agree that over the last few years you've seen an exponential change in the ecosystem?
Sure. Things began to happen even before the main bricks of the ecosystem were put in place. Some successes happened, but people don't know about them, and they have made it internationally with their own means. So now that there's this attention and this effort, this energy that's being put, the financing that has been secured through the Circular 331, I think there's a very big potential for this story to become known all around the planet, and for Lebanon to be present on the map, on the digital sphere, on the map of the digital sphere. And I think we're going to see that happening faster and faster, because a lot of initiatives that we know about are about to be made known to the public.
One of the things about technology startups is money. And the question is entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs need access to capital in order to build disruptive, high growth companies. What's your perspective? Do you think that there is enough money in the ecosystem now?
What we have observed for sure in our 20 years of coverage of the entrepreneurship ecosystem, the last 4 years, it's starting to make sense. Now we have to give it purpose. For this to happen, we hope in the coming 5 years, to answer your question, is for the Capital Markets Authority to come up with a GPLP law and regulation that will encourage the creation of more private equity funds and VC funds that are well regulated and will allow for indirect investment to come and to invest in that ecosystem.
I mean, you've obviously seen the rise of new funds. I mean, MIT, for instance, obviously has been, well, not as a fund, but as an ecosystem player. But you're wearing a couple of different hats, aren't you? Because you're obviously part of the LEAP fund.
Yeah, let me take a step back on the funding. We've been talking, I mean, this whole event is taking place because the Central Bank of Lebanon has taken an extraordinary step by putting about $480 million on the market to be invested by banks into the startup ecosystem. And to put this number into perspective, because everybody was saying, wow, this is a huge amount of money, how are we going to spend this? The Lebanese startups are going to be overcapitalized, there's going to be competition on price, and that's
Valuations
bad.
will be too high.
But if you put the number into perspective, 480 million, it's about 100 billion investment a year on a 5-year investment period. And I've compared to other countries where the venture capital industry is vibrant, and the average in high innovation countries like Denmark, the US, is 0.5% of GDP invested through venture capital firms into the economy. So that would be $250 million for Lebanon, and we're only investing 100 million thanks to the BDL 331, which means we need much more money on all steps of the venture capital industry. And Leap Ventures is positioned on the later stage of that, where we think also a lot of money is needed, and also much, much bigger tickets to have Lebanese companies compete on a global scale and facilitate these companies, I mean, to reach an exit. And just one more thing about the ecosystem. I think the ecosystem of Lebanon is quite unique, in the sense that what makes it unique is how much goodwill there is in it. The ecosystem was built from scratch by so many NGOs, and this goodwill comes, I mean, you mentioned I chair the MIT Enterprise Forum, but there's also the whole Lebanese diaspora that is willing to help Lebanon. And the initiative Lebanon for Entrepreneurs is a great one that puts together the Lebanon diaspora to the entrepreneurs, and successful entrepreneurs that we've seen yesterday are willing to help the local ecosystem.
Nicholas, obviously in your capacity previously in the government, did you feel like you were pushing at an open door when you decided to make some of the reforms and the policies that you put in as a minister? Did your colleagues in politics think that this is a good idea, or did you find that people didn't understand what was going on?
No, I wasn't pushing an open door. I wished I was pushing an open door. I was breaking a door, a concrete wall.
So they didn't get it?
No, they didn't get it, but we made it. I mean, on some parts of the efforts were bear results. But there are still things to be done on the infrastructure level. I mean, for the digital economy in Lebanon to thrive, it needs abundant bandwidth, fast connection, which is still very much under what it should be.
What about telecoms regulation? Can you improve? Do you feel that the telecoms market is competitive enough?
The regulation is acceptable. The private sector plays too much it takes too much of the pie, so it needs, you need to involve the private sector more and to privatize to some extent. But on the infrastructure level, it's very important to note that today it needs one click to have specific areas like the universities, the Beirut Digital District, and other places to be connected through fiber. To have all Lebanese connected through fiber, you need 1 year to 3 years to deploy. But to connect, they are already connected. These clusters are already connected. They just need to be programmed to open the bandwidths. So we're 1 click away from having the digital economy clusters being connected to the world at the maximum speed.
You mentioned infrastructure there, and I know that Beirut Digital District is quite a big infrastructure play. Allow me to be the ignorant outsider. When I see those kinds of initiatives, I often think this is just about real estate. A lot of the time, startups can't actually afford the office space that these kinds of initiatives have. When we've done this kind of thing in London, somebody puts up a big flashy building with high bandwidth, but the offices are just too expensive for the startups. So what are you doing at Beirut Digital District to alleviate that initial impression?
When Beirut Digital District was launched in end of 2012 as an MOU with the Ministry of Telecommunication and with Beritech, we had in mind to try to create the best business environment to try to attract the startups working in the ecosystem, to have an incubator accelerator park and then a commercial park. And we committed and we had a view which is a long-term view, which is a return on investment within a 10 years plan. That's why we developed a master plan for the upcoming 10 years. And we were willing and we committed to subsidize the companies that are within the ecosystem and to provide them the best competitive rental rates and added value services so that they can focus on their core values, on their core ideas, where we add services such as dealing with the government papers, dealing with all the hassles that they have on a daily basis in Lebanon. And the main thing from the Ministry of Telecommunication that we wanted is the fiber optics, high-speed internet at high bandwidth, and hopefully at subsidized rates to be able to compete with the neighboring countries. Now, as Minister Sahnawi said, that has been physically connected for more than a year now, but unfortunately, it hasn't been turned on.
So why is that, though?
Yes, sir.
Well, why has it not been
That's
turned
from
on?
a real estate perspective. Why are we involved in that? Because we see it all over the world. The digital economy is reshaping cities. And it's becoming a need for people to gather at the city. Creative people need to gather together. And if they grow, and this is what's growing exponentially, the real estate will grow.
But where is the block? You know, why is something not being switched on? What's the delay?
Well, I think for many reasons, perhaps like political reasons, administrative reasons, decision who would control the fiber optic networks, is it which entity will control the fiber optic network, and being able to take that decision is taking so much time.
Sounds like you have an opinion on this.
No, I want to ask the journalist on the panel because he knows all the stories. So please,
Well, what does
who's
the
behind that
journalist say?
click?
بعد قليلة ما سيسة. So let's stick to administrative reasons.
He's not a good journalist.
But a good diplomat.
Although it's a perfect panel, just to call the name, and maybe if he had joined us today to see the call of thousands of youth, that really the future of the country and the nation-building exercise will not be complete without them. When everything is dysfunctional in this country, this is the only ecosystem that makes sense. And the absence of a top-to-bottom approach as compared to the bottom-up that we have witnessed in the last 4 years, if the government and government officials do not really step up to give a purpose for the ecosystem as an integral part of nation building, we are failing. At the end of the day, Silicon Valley was not built just to benefit the world. It was built for an American purpose, and it's serving that purpose, and it served the world along the way. How many jobs do we expect this ecosystem to create? What are we going to how are we going to help the ecosystem to achieve these macroeconomic figures that we expect from the ecosystem.
Is there such a thing, sometimes in my world we have a phrase, a magic bullet. Is there a magic pill or something that one single thing that could be done? I mean, personally, for me, when I speak to entrepreneurs in London, they say, look, just give us freaking fast internet and then we'll sort out the rest. And this goes on and on. You know, if you can't have the internet companies without the internet. And so infrastructure is massively important.
Series of little steps. I mean, now that the funds are playing a bigger role, we hope that there will be more competition at that front. Again, like His Excellency, a bit of hope on the internet front, a bit of hope on the capital markets front and the Beirut Stock Exchange front. Just little announcements, little baby steps, and it will just give a positive
So you feel
mood.
that there is actually just a few things that need to be done?
Absolutely, it's a mood, it's a direction that we need to go to take.
An administrative, I think, decision that needs to be taken that internet and telecommunication is not a source of, it is a big source of income to the government. But currently they look at it like if we increase bandwidth, perhaps we're gonna have increased use of voice over IP, which will impact the revenues of the telecommunication, which is the mobile sector. However, by increasing the internet, we are increasing the productivity of all this ecosystem, which will have a direct impact of the GDP of the countries. And this is what needs to be taken as like a decision to build the digital highways.
Yeah, I just don't agree with the baby steps that we need, because we have a central bank that has taken huge steps. So we need huge steps. We're fed up with baby steps. And a huge step, I mean, in front of $480 million that are going to be spent, as someone who is in charge of spending a bit of that, I feel a huge responsibility to make this asset class worth investing in asset class, so that we attract international investors into Lebanon. So if we have $480 million spent in this country, we need something that starts with the F word, high-speed internet. We need high-speed internet now, and not in baby steps.
Right. Certainly, internet access and startups tend to create at least 2 or 3 more jobs than any that they replace. So telecom companies whinging and moaning about voice over IP or whatever is completely the wrong attitude. These new economy jobs, new information technology jobs, create more jobs than they actually replace. So there's nothing to be done. There's no worries about that. That's the point. What you've seen that in every economy that the internet has touched, more jobs have been created than the ones that replaced. You were going to say something, sir.
No, first on the infrastructure, let's remember that we are coming from far. 3 years ago, Lebanon didn't have any redundancy on the international connectivity. It didn't have 3G and 4G network, and the DSL was still average was 40 to 50K per second. Okay, since then we've upgraded a lot, and we're still waiting for the last step, which is the fiber connection. And I'm saying that this step is available today. Today is one switch. There's no need either for investment nor for time to deploy. Already the main clusters, the main corporations of the country have been linked through fiber. They just need to open the bandwidth. So we're there. We'll get there. Somehow somebody will force someone to open this bandwidth. Okay?
Let's go do it.
But on the
yeah, Karen.
Sorry, on the bricks, the ecosystem bricks that are still needed to other than the infrastructure, I will say that we have to increase the deal flow, and we're working on this. There are some initiatives that are going to be announced to have boot camps and more accelerators, more boot camps to increase the deal flow, because with the Circular 331 we have now availability of funds, but they actually need to study a lot of startups to invest in them. We need to upgrade the curriculum of the universities and schools to have more coders, more developers in the country, because more startups will need more workforce, more skilled engineers to be able to develop these startups. We need financial markets because we need to have an exit for these companies. We need some liquidity. The banks, the funds, they want to invest in startup, but they want to know that if everything goes wrong, they have some kind of an exit, even on the low side, with a certain valuation. And we talked about the infrastructure. On the funding availability, we need to make sure that we have all steps of the startup life being catered for, because we have now a lot of funds.
Where do you feel that there is enough, say, seed money, angel money, seed, Series A, funds, etc., available, or there's still work to be done there?
Well, I mean, of course, there's still work to be done, but again, if we take, a positive attitude compared to having nothing, and now there is money that is going to be deployed in the ecosystem, so I'm very hopeful that even a year from now, we'll start seeing more of the all-stage entrepreneur appear on the ecosystem. There's one thing I'd like to add to his list of things that are needed, maybe on the mentality front. I think, yesterday someone said Uber is a simple idea. Someone could have started from Lebanon. I'm not sure. I'm not sure someone coming with an idea like this would have been taken seriously by everyone in the ecosystem. So it's, the mentality is very important. Alex Assaili said yesterday that in Silicon Valley you have a 20 million market of people who are ready to try new things. But I think that Lebanese people are ready for the change. They like to try new things. We're very well connected around the world with people who are ready to try new things all over. So we could, it's going to take maybe one year or two to change, to click the mentality and have them.
Something that I've seen in other ecosystems is this sort of pay it forward mentality where you help people, you don't stay in a kind of closed attitude system. You try and help you try and introduce people, and I'm sure that's kind of, to some extent, it's kind of endemic to your culture. What were you going to say?
I think on the mentality, something that needs really to be improved, and we're starting to seeing it, is collaboration. Like all the startups, all the funds that are coming, there's a great opportunity for Lebanon to grow the ecosystem. The more they collaborate together to help these new ideas to grow, the better they have to see like the world being their market and here being the production kitchen. And they should not compete in locally, whereas they have to help each other to try to achieve what the ecosystem should achieve in the upcoming years.
Just to add one word on that same idea, this event is by far the first event that broke the clubbish approach to entrepreneurship. And I was talking with Hala yesterday over dinner, and at Executive Magazine, we have always succeeded to identify entrepreneurs from outside the normal pack. And there are so many entrepreneurs out there that don't think they belong or didn't know that this existed. And there are very hardworking entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs, that I think after this event will come forward to take advantage of what has been built over the last 4 years.
I want to pick up on the culture idea that Hala brought up. She's perfectly right. We have to bridge the gap between two different cultures, which is the banker's culture and the startup culture. And Circular 331 made it bridge the gap somehow, but maybe not enough, because the banker is still taking a risk, and the banking culture in Lebanon still assess the ideas based on the securities the startup provides. So this young guy or this young team, they have a wonderful idea that could be the next Google. They come to a bank, and the banker says, okay, do you have a land as security? What's your business plan? Do you have clients? Do you have, are you losing money? So, and the startup promoter or entrepreneur, he's completely in another approach. He knows that his company is going to lose money for a few years, but then it's going to start winning money in a medium to long term, and he's going to make an exit. Even if he's still losing money, he'll make a huge exit. So it's really a new culture, a new approach to things, and the bankers are still locked in the old approach. I think here we need to work on something very urgently.
What about, is there a feeling that yourself, is someone going to clap? No. Is there a feeling yourself that, I agree. Is there a feeling that entrepreneurs themselves are educated enough? I mean, for instance, I know that, you know, there's still kind of entrepreneurs out there who are just, they're not reading enough, they're too raw. They know, they think that an angel giving them $50,000 for 50% of their company is a good deal when it's absolutely daylight robbery. Are there entrepreneurs out there who know the difference between an accelerator and an incubator? Is there education out there, or is the market still very young?
The market is definitely developing, and I totally agree with you. We have heard some complaints on that front. Entrepreneurs who are not brokering good deals, and they're being taken a bit advantage of. Meanwhile, universities and accelerators/incubators have to step up and contribute a lot in that education, which, let's say, research and development in universities are non-existent. So far, really, the entrepreneurs that have emerged could really considered outliers because they are the product of autodidact. How do we translate autodidact? Self-learned or self-educated, and they figured it out alone. So if we put at their disposal, definitely much more resources at that front.
Yeah, I mean, just on your point, I think it's a very relevant point. So on education, I think there are two parts of education. There's the education, like I've been to the right places and I know I've been to a good school, I've mingled enough with the entrepreneurship ecosystem, I know what an incubator is. And then there's real life education. Have I failed? Have I started a company? Have I tried? Have I worked hard enough? In Arabic, we'd say ndaket, which means, you know, I've failed, I've fell many times, and yet I'm still standing. So that part, because the ecosystem is young, I think we're not there yet. And that part, to be honest, I feel today falls under the responsibility of the funders of the ecosystem to put the entrepreneur at the center of that ecosystem, both in terms of learning and in terms of how important it is for him to be incentivized the right way, because the journey is pretty difficult. So you need to keep him motivated and to keep the learning quite high for him and for the entire ecosystem.
What about the links with the international either entrepreneur community or the investors? One of the things that I've observed in Europe is a lot of VCs, say based in London or Berlin, being able to roam all over Western Europe and Central as well, often, and find great startups, find entrepreneurs, pump them with some cash, scale them up, and often maybe even move them straight to New York or the Valley. Do you feel that you've got those kinds of links happening that, for instance, you mentioned earlier the diaspora, the links in the Valley. What are you doing to kind of make the ecosystem, not just here in Lebanon or in the Middle East, more strong, but also creating that international, sort of accessing that international global technology startup community?
The governor and the British ambassador announced yesterday the creation of the UK Lebanon Tech Hub, which is aiming at doing just that, bridging the local community with the international markets and the international supply chain, and making them benefit from the London network of companies and of people. And I know that about two other initiatives also during this conference. We talked extensively about it, who are going to do just the same, but maybe for the United States. So aside from the natural Lebanese diaspora network, which is huge and very introduced in various fields, I think we'll have concrete initiatives where people can come to Beirut, enter an organization, and be linked to the whole planet. And there's also, sorry, I have to mention the Endeavor NGO, who's already working on this very successfully.
At BDD, we're trying to partner with NGOs. We partner with Endeavor because we see them as really the relay for the Lebanese entrepreneurs. They focus on high-impact entrepreneurs. And for them, what's high-impact entrepreneurs is entrepreneurs that create the most number of jobs in their countries, which is very important. And they have a global network worldwide, and they try to connect these companies to the worldwide connection. There's another NGO, which is LFE, that's also connecting Lebanese for entrepreneurs worldwide and trying to host and bring the diaspora into Lebanon. I think also our partner is Beritech, and we're seeing some funds that have started back 10 years with European Investment Bank that is interested and has invested with them. And currently, recently, it was a great announcement, I think, like Marusha Maswell announcement, also USAID had got involved to help drive the ecosystem. So there is a change, there is an increased investment, there is a potential that's being seen in the ecosystem, trying to connect through these NGOs with the Lebanese diaspora to give back to Lebanon is quite interesting.
Let me be cynical about that. I don't think that NGOs are always the answer. I mean, they're great, but there is also, you've got to connect with the real business community. The business community are the ones who actually make the decisions at the end of the day.
Maybe if I could take concrete examples of, because I talked about the Lebanese goodwill, both locally and internationally, to help, and concrete examples of what NGOs have done. So through the Lebanon for Entrepreneur Network, in connection with LebNet, we have a great mentorship of entrepreneurs from Silicon Valley executives that has happened. Badir, which is has mobilized the Lebanon successful businessman to help entrepreneurs, has actually funded a number of Lebanese entrepreneurs and has contributed to the creation of the first venture capital fund in Lebanon. The MIT Enterprise Forum has created success stories that were in conjunction with Beritech, for example, Hindah Bey'a, the winner of the MIT Enterprise Forum competition of 3 years ago. So I think the ecosystem today, and if we're investing today in entrepreneurs, it's really the result of successful NGOs that have done incredible work on the ground.
So what about kind of other stuff like, do you feel that there's kind of an excitement about startups? I mean, do you get pitched every day as you're walking down the street? Do you go to conferences and find tons of young people doing startups? What's going on? What's the atmosphere like? What do you think? Executive Magazine, you guys cover that kind of thing?
Well, the phone doesn't stop ringing. I mean, it keeps on ringing, and again, I'm going to touch on the previous point, for example, Endeavor, which has a broader definition to entrepreneurship. We have here among the exhibitors Beirut Design Week, and that's a huge source of deals that we have to take very seriously. We have excellent designers, and we have excellent creative minds in Lebanon. We just need to know how to invest with them. We had few success stories like Nada Dibis and others, and there is tons of other opportunities awaiting. We just need to break, and this event again broke this clubbish approach to entrepreneurship. Hopefully we're going to be tapping into a much broader definition that will make more sense for funds too.
Mike, I want to emphasize on the creativity. The Lebanese people are extremely creative. I would argue they are one of the most creative people on earth. Because of their history, because of the fact that we are a crossroads of cultures and civilizations and religions, that makes us creative. And this is not just because we're Lebanese and we're talking about ourselves, but this has been proven in all the fields where you have to creative input. When you look at the advertising companies of the Arab world, they are all Lebanese. When you look at the designers, the top 3, 4, 5 are Lebanese. When you look at the movie makers, music industry, TVCs, jewelry, the jewelers, the first jewelers in the Middle East are Lebanese. So this proves that we have something in our genes, which is creativity. This is one important element. The second one for our success, the success factors of Lebanon, is our network. We have 25% of our people are living in Lebanon, and 75% of our people are spread across all the continents. So this is a fantastic network to use. The third one is that we are salespeople, salesmen. We are service-oriented. And this also makes it easier for us to sell our products, convince people around the world that what we are doing is good. So I think that we speak 3 languages, etc. I think we have everything that is needed to succeed. This is a baby that's just being born. Already we can see the fruits. Already we can see fantastic ideas, a vibrant ecosystem, a vibrant startup entrepreneurs. And I want to salute them today and say that we are talking, we are giving money, we are trying, but at the end of the day, they are doing, because they deserve it, we are making all this effort.
No, I feel I'm sitting next to a poet, so we need to be a poet. I feel
creative.
Yes, I feel it's an incredible opportunity to revive actually the Lebanese identity. There are not many things that unite us, and this one I think is a huge thing. So let's make it work together.
I agree. Certainly, as an observer myself of the tech community, I think it's fantastic that, you know, it doesn't really matter where you're from, what your politics are, what your ideology might be. Being in a technology community is, I think, an incredibly uniting thing, generally speaking. I've seen that many places. You wanted to say something?
But like going back, you told me like why real estate. But I think there is a need, and that's happening worldwide, to create clusters where these people get together. Because when they get together, and it's usually creativity comes from an intersection between science and art. And when you mingle these people together, you have energy, you have positive energy. They want to be together, they want to connect together. And this is the importance of creating more collaborative environment. And as you said, the only thing that they want to focus on is how to succeed, how to look forward. They don't want to be involved in politics or in religion or on so many things, but they want just to succeed, they want the word, and they want to interconnect. That's it.
I agree, and I've seen that around, say, for instance, in the Mitte area of Berlin, or the Silicon Sentier area of Paris, or the Shoreditch area of London. These little clusters of people where they can literally run into each other, go for coffee, the investors know where to go to meet the entrepreneurs, etc., etc. This is, I mean, you've got that kind of thing going on here in Beirut, right?
And what I find actually in the BDD project, the Beirut Digital District project, even more interesting is that it's a bit like Twitter in San Francisco. It's in an area that is quite
run down.
Yes,
right.
Quite different. It's not the traditional upscale Beirut. And reaching out maybe to the neighboring districts of BDD is also maybe a mission for these entrepreneurs, so that technology also breaks many barriers.
I have to mention, like when we started at BDD 2 years ago, when people started seeing, I think Nicolas was one of the first that saw what's the vision that we have for the area. But we went in, and that's something that no one knows, is that we went with our team, and my team was also afraid to step foot in the area. We used to find snakes which are 3 meters long in the building at the first steps, because no one has stepped foot since the 1975 war. Now people go there and they see Wi-Fi, they see the gardens, they see the people, the energy of the people. And that's what I'm saying. It's the people that create the community, that creates the area and the real estate, but not the real estate that creates the community. One main thing is that to be able to grow, we're hiring people from the neighborhood. And now they're starting to see the advantage of progress. And that's how we think we will grow.
Are you running any coding clubs for the kids?
We are?
Running coding clubs for the kids.
Not yet.
Well, start running them then.
Yeah, but no, we have like one concept store. We're trying to have hangout spaces. We have one concept store that started, which was Geek Express, where we wanted to try to interconnect with education and universities to try bring graduating talents to connect to the companies that are there.
I think this is a massively important thing. Is like we're not going to regenerate the economy just by bringing in people. We've got to get the kids learning to code. We've got to get all the young people on board with the project rather than just trying to import people all the time. I mean, if you'll excuse me, I'm just an ignorant guy from London, but can I ask a question? A lot of people outside this ecosystem, you know, we read in the newspapers every day, we watch the TV. We know that the Middle East is in there real problems, right, going across the board right now. What's happening? Journalists are being arrested in Egypt, which I find very distressful all the time. What's going on? I mean, you know, there's been massive social change over the last few years. The Arab Revolution, the spring. How is that going to affect what you are trying to build? Or is this the positive side of all of that chaos?
First, I would argue that the internet community or the social media community or the geek community has the ability to live like in the Matrix, with a helmet on their head, regardless of what's happening outside.
We have internet.
And then they live on the planet. They don't live exactly physically, geographically where they are living. They are in the digital sphere. So that's a plus in this sector. This is a chance that you have to actually disconnect from the world that is around you. And the second thing is that Lebanon has a freedom of press and media since ever. And this helps also create this atmosphere where we were already living with such a freedom before the Arab Spring and will remain living it after the Arab Spring. So I mean, we have a culture of freedom. We have a culture of freedom of expression, of differences, which is in itself a plus for the community that wants to feel this.
You said something about but you still won't need the internet access.
Yeah, I mean, to get into the matrix. But maybe just to build on what Minister Sahnawi just said, I think the resilience that the Lebanese have developed because of the instability in the country will prove over time for entrepreneurs to be a great asset. So maybe not today, maybe there are many challenges today, but I think if we look long term, there aren't that many resilient people around this planet. And I think this is one feature of Lebanese people that will turn out to be very beneficial for the success of entrepreneurs.
Right, well, I'm not sure if we've got any questions in the audience or if anyone would like. Oh, there's one over there.
My name is Lara Abdel Malak. I'm from the press. I work with the Al-Iqtisad wal-A'mal group. I'm very interested in this topic in the region. I have two basic questions. First of all, if you look around us, I was doing a research. Most of the venture capitalists, most of the big companies around the world would rather invest in startups from Israel, for example, rather than any startup from the Middle East. So I would like to know, I mean, what's your take on that? Why do you think that's the case? Is it that we don't have strong entrepreneurs? Is it that, I mean, I don't understand it.
Okay, so that's the first question. Second question?
The second question is, you say that you're going to do a joint with the UK, but the UK in and of itself are trying to be the hub for technology and for startup. So I don't know how that works. I mean, a company that wants to attract a lot of investors and entrepreneurs at the same time wants to help Lebanon do the same. Thank you.
Well, I could probably help you with the second one, which is that London has access to massive capital markets, the stock exchange, and it's recently introduced a thing called the high growth segment, allowing very larger technology companies to float a portion of their equity on the stock exchange.
If I can take a crack at the second one
Yeah.
too. I think you're addressing a very important point, and let me take this opportunity to talk about what kind of mentality we need to all have here to make this successful. We need to stop thinking my territory versus your territory. It's open plan, open source, open platform. If I succeed, you succeed. I share my success because you're going to be more successful, and your success will feed into my success. And it's exactly what Mohammed was saying about the spirit of collaboration that we need to have. If London succeeds with some Middle Eastern entrepreneurs, it's great for the Middle East, it's great for Lebanon, and we'll succeed as well, and we'll help London, and London will help us.
But wouldn't you be happier if you hear that the company that made it was listed on the Beirut Stock Exchange and got cross-listed on the London Stock Exchange?
It will come, it will come, it will come.
I think it's about getting money into the ecosystem, isn't it? Because when you have entrepreneurs who do well and they exit, these days they don't just go and sit on an island somewhere. They go back into the ecosystem, they can become angel investors, they produce more funds, and then it's all good. Just on the first point, the question, I think the question really ultimately is what's the, if I was an investor and I wanted to come and invest in Lebanon, why would I go here versus another country in the Middle East? What's the one single answer you would give them?
First, I think the Israeli market is not really in competition with the Arab market in general. They are, of course, on the idea level, on the technology level, but not on the finance level, because we have huge funds in the Middle East, in fact, and we need to attract these funds into this new technology sector, and I think it's doable. It's being done. It's being done. Israel has a huge number of startups and a very big digital economy. If we succeed in making a small part of it in the few years, it will be great. It will really be a drive force for the Lebanese economy, and I think we will do it. And I'm not afraid that we will fail. But we shouldn't look at someone who has 20 years of advance and feel bad about it. I mean, they have 20 years of advance, they have means that we don't. We are just starting, and we have huge means that we need to exploit. So that's the positive approach.
Just a quick thing on why they have 20 years of advance. If you take just life sciences in Israel, you have about $6 billion invested both by corporations in R&D in Israel and by universities. If we have this number for any sector in Lebanon, we can compete in that sector. You just need to invest in research and development and universities, and we don't have that.
Final thoughts, because I think I'm going to have to shut down, so we've got the next speaker. But do you want to say something? Oh, yeah.
Just the day we see our prime minister, or any prime minister, or one day a president of ours, heading a delegation of young 20-year-old entrepreneurs all the way to Silicon Valley and pushing himself for them, then we are in good shape.
And that hasn't happened yet?
Didn't happen yet.
Well, there you go. That's something we could do. We can take this. We'll ask the Prime Minister to take a delegation of Lebanon's hottest young entrepreneurs, young and old, it doesn't matter how old they are, to Silicon Valley, or come to London, come and see me in London as well. So anyway, I want to say thank you very much to our panel. Thank you.
Thank you.